Welcome to Tyromper's No Limit Podcast.
Welcome to Tyromper's No Limit Podcast. This is episode 21. This is one we are especially fired up for, guys. Been looking forward to this one. Had it on the calendar for a while. Even wore the husband, daddy, protector, hero t-shirt for it. We're fired up. We got 4 men in the house tonight that I learn from every single day and have for about a year or so here on Twitter. I love these men with the bottom of my heart. I think that everything they stand for on fatherhood, on marriage, on life is something that we can all learn from. And so I'm really honored today to welcome my brothers, Joel, Anthony, Heath, and John into the house. Thank you guys so much for coming on to the podcast, fellas.
Glad to be here.
So
Thanks for
today
having
what
me.
we're going to do, man, we're just going to have a roundtable talk. Each one of these guys kind of brings their own expertise to the table. And so what I'm going to do is kind of go around the horn. We're going to start with my brother here, Joel. Joel, thanks for coming on, my man. And, Joel, you're a man that you're about to be a dad of 5. Is that correct?
That's right.
5, man. Wow. Congratulations, brother. And you're a man that I learn a lot from, man. I was wondering if you could just kind of introduce yourself really quickly and then kind of share what you're all about, my man.
Yeah. So I'm Joel, and I've known you, Tyler, about a year, going back to when we first did our podcast. You had on the leader of the Wifesexual community, so that was just kind of a joke that I kind of had started because everybody kind of does their own thing, and it was like, well, I'm a wifesexual. And it kind of blew up, and I was like, oh, this is just one of those. I like to mess around on Twitter and joke around, but it kind of got a lot of traction, and so I was like, oh, I could kind of make this a thing, and like you run with it, and some others kind of run with it, so it's kind of like a inside joke, but I feel like there's a point to it. It's like, hey, we're men that we pursue our wives, like that is really the kind of the goal behind it. Once I kind of saw, I was like, oh, like this is kind of a thing, because I've been married. This will be year 17 of being married for me. And when I pursued my wife when we were dating, and it was just like fireworks, and it was like great. And then you get into the marriage, and then it's the bills, things get sick. I was trying to start my career and build what that was all about, and the kids come, and she has to take care of the kids. And so it was just like you go from her being like this treasure to like, oh, like I have all these other things to take care of. And it was like, let me get back to what got us here in the first place. Like, and so like that wifesexual, I don't know if you guys call it a meme or whatever. That's like that's me like memeing myself, because I think that's kind of like what we do in our walk with God, because marriage to me is a reflection of our walk with God. It's like, we're on fire with God, we're pursuing him, but then we get caught up in the things of the world. And I think that was reflected in my marriage also. So the wifesexual was like, hey, yes, I'm continually pursuing, and I continually want to, like, it's like for me, like I'm memeing myself, like I want to pursue her in this way. So that's kind of where that whole came from. So a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. I always appreciate your commentary on there. And then can you kind of walk us through too, man? Because, I know your journey of, hey, you're about to have your 5th child, right?
Yeah.
And, like you said, we start out on fire a lot of times, but what have you been able to do to kind of cultivate that, still to bring that passion, that kind of that wifosexual mentality into their marriage every day, man? What's some kind of tips and things that you could share with us, my man?
I mean, I talk dirty to my wife a lot, like
without getting us deplatformed or going.
Yeah. It's just like, I'm constantly just like, making comments. Like she bends over, like, I'm doing those things because, that's just kind of how I always was. That's just kind of how I was. So that's just, that's just me. But, I took on another dimension once we had kids. It was, okay, like she has all these things to do. And like, that's when like my favorite things, is sex. That's like one of my favorite things. But what can I do to help her? Because at night, like it's like, hey, I'm ready, but it's like she's had kids all over her all day, and it's like it's not really she like, why would she be in the mood, like really, like you think about it. So that was big. It's like, hey, how can I help you to fill your cup up? And that was something that I learned from you too, Tyler, was like, hey, paying the babysitter, once a week to have that have that time. But also I had gone through some trainings, and this was a kind of a big revelation for us, was like, she had certain needs and I didn't understand them because I'm wired different than she is. And so I'm not even talking about sexual needs. I'm just talking about like I have a need where I need like my own personal space and individual time. And that kind of fills my cup up. So I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I mean, I'm in a house with 6 other people. Like, where do I get that personal space? But she has a need where she needs me to like help out around the house. And so it's like, once I understood that, because to me, it's like, well, we have 6 people in the house. Of course, the house is gonna be messy. It's like not a big deal to me, but it's a big deal to her. So learning those kinds of things, really kind of like keeps it like, I'm giving you my best foot forward. Or, hey, like, it takes me a lot of effort to do those things. I can do like 2 things, give them to me, and I know I can handle that and knock that out for you. So things like that.
That's big, man. I often heard that the bedroom starts way before the bedroom, man. You
Yeah.
can take some things off her plate. That's always a big thing, man. I appreciate you sharing that, Joel. Anybody else want to hop in with anything on that topic as well? Although, Heath, you got to hold off, brother, because you got a big one on that too. But Anthony, John, anything you want to add to that real quick before we move on?
No, other than yes, just other than to say that I love, the fact what Joel's talking about there, to continue to pursue your wife. That just cannot be lost in all that he said, because it's not natural for us as men. Once we conquer and we catch our prey, if you will, we often say that's good. And to keep pursuing and keep challenging and flirting and the date nights and all that's part of that. And I just love how Joel says that, because that's super important in our marriage too, in any marriage. And men, we just need to remember that women want to be pursued always, and keep doing it. Good work, Joel.
Yeah.
My wife always jokes with me, if she knows that I'm putting her above all else and putting her first, she'll let me know too.
Yeah.
I think that's always a pretty good thing that's top of my mind, right?
Yeah.
All right, man. Moving on next to my main man here, Anthony. Anthony, I love you, brother. Number one, you are fit as a fiddle, man. Look at those freaking pipes. And
get some.
Man, I know you work
please.
pretty closely with Zach. We just had Zach on the pod a couple episodes ago too, man. One of the best men I've ever met. And can you kind of just, briefly, I think anybody who probably follows me would know you too, but can you just kind of give us a rundown of who you are, what you're about, my man?
Yeah, definitely, Tyler. Thank you for having me on, first and foremost. I appreciate it. I think this is awesome, right? This is what we're doing. I see this growing every day, right? Fathers, men getting on and talking about how to be better. So I really appreciate it. But my name's Anthony Miglarino. We have peacefulfathers.com. That's my main company, right? That's where I coach fathers. I help fathers raise their kids in a obviously peaceful manner. But, the real purpose of it is to build ourselves better, right? Become better men so we can be better leaders for our kids. And a lot of people think peaceful parenting might be weak. It might be liberal, but it's anything but that, right? It's about really being dedicated and learning how to become a better father, right? Learning different tools and really figuring out how to connect with your kids so you can move away from aggression and violence, yelling, screaming, and we can mute myself. Instead of focusing on the child's behavior, we start to look at ourselves a little bit more, and we start to see, are we being the example of what it means to be a good man? And I think that's where a lot of problems lie, right? We tell our kids all these things and we want them to behave a certain way, but we're never really showing them or actually teaching them how to be a good person. So once you get away from the demanding part, once you get away from the strict rule, your house becomes peaceful because people are cooperating, right? They enjoy being with you. They enjoy being part of the family. So that's a lot of what I do with Peaceful Fathers, really just looking to help dads build relationships with their kids, as instead of always just fitting into a role of like, I have to be a dad. And a lot of men don't know what that means, right? They don't, based on past experience, right? A lot of us probably came from maybe troubled childhoods. A lot of kids these days don't even have fathers, right? There's a big fatherless home crisis going on in America. So it's good to bring awareness and let the dads know who are there, who are present, that we need to start stepping up and we need to do a better job, right? We need to start raising our kids better. So that's the main thing. But like you said, the big project, Oak and Rock Fatherhood, is me and Zach collaborated. We got together and, we decided, hey, man, we need to join forces, right? We need to he's got his message with the Family Alpha. Like you said, man, I love the dude. He's a great guy. He motivates me every day. And I've learned a lot from him. So it put me in a spot of doing things that I wasn't really used to, making YouTube videos. Guy had me on stage in Vegas talking about peaceful parenting. It's been crazy. I can't thank him enough, but that's really what we're doing. We're just trying to get fathers more in tune and more, I would say, peaceful in the home, but also peaceful with themselves, right? Get some inner love and some inner peace. So we don't have to always be reactive and angry and mad. We can be the oak and the rock. We can provide stability, safety, and comfort to our kids.
That's awesome, brother. I love that. And, I think before I really kind of got turned on to you and Zach, I had this idea in my head of what fatherhood might look like and whatnot. And then, kind of seeing how you guys talk about, you model it first, and then you are that calming presence. Can you kind of speak on that? Is there ever an okay time to not be a peaceful parent, or how do you balance that, man? Because I'm sure you get some difficult questions.
Well, no, and that's a good question. And the way I think about it is what I tolerate in my own life, right? I don't tolerate friends or people or even acquaintances who will not show me respect, who are going to cross a line where I think is inappropriate. And I teach that to my kids, right? I teach them that they are important. Nobody gets to disrespect them. Nobody gets to mistreat them. And that even includes me. But when I do, to answer your question, yeah, of course, man, I'm human, right? I mess up, I scream, I yell, I use the dad voice. But what I make sure that I do after that is apologize to my kids and let them know, hey, listen, I messed up. I made a mistake. And that's a lesson that I want to teach them, right? I don't want them to be perfect, right? This isn't about raising perfect kids. I just want them to be comfortable in their own skin when they do have a problem or they do mess up, or even if they hurt somebody, to own it, right? To take ownership of what they're doing, their actions, their behaviors. And I never put pressure on my kids to be a certain way. I want them to be who they are, right? I don't want them to be who I think they should be. I want them to be genuine. I want them to be authentic, even if that means that they're hard to tolerate sometimes, even if that means they're pushing my buttons, right? I don't want to suppress that. I want to see them in all their glory, right? For the best that they can be, the good, the bad. And, hopefully there's an in-between where we can have some sanity.
That's so awesome, man. I think that, a big takeaway for me in that is that maybe my daughter won't be a great athlete or whatnot, but I want to encourage her in whatever she wants to be, right? And just help develop for her to walk her own path. And I really appreciate how you put that out there, man. Thank you so much for that. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that as well? Ain't nobody trying to one up Anthony on that, man. He's got that
just to add to what Joel was saying before, I've been with my wife now for 27 years. We've been married. We're going on 20 this year. And, to emphasize his point of keeping it fresh, keeping it new, keeping things exciting. I'm more attracted to my wife now than I've ever been in my life, right? And that just keeps growing every year. And a lot of it is, we work on it. We try to be present. We try to have fun with each other. Another thing, and I think was a great point just to add, is I'm madly in love with my wife. And in my eyes, she is beautiful, right? I see her as this person that is continually growing and improving as I do, right? As I get better and become a better man, she's right alongside me. So that keeps the relationship fresh. It keeps it new. It keeps it exciting. And it makes me I shouldn't say always, but it makes me usually see her in a really good light. And that attractiveness, it's always not physical, man. There's, something a lot deeper to it.
That's beautiful, man. You kind of just opened my eyes to something right there too. And it is that, I always heard from these guys like, oh yeah, it's really good now in your first couple of years, but wait till 10 years, wait till you have 3 kids, 4 kids. And I was like, oh man, yikes. But if you're continually trying to get better and your wife's continually trying to get better and you're trying to get better as a unit, you're always kind of improving together, and it's always kind of new and fresh, like you said. Then, man, that's really well put, man. I appreciate that. Thanks, brother. And I want to hype everybody before I move on to Heath here next, but I want to say, just because Anthony said that, man, I'm going to link everything all these men do below. It's a big reason I want to have these guys on today, because I really hope that anybody watching this, go check out Anthony's website, go check out Joel's podcast, go check out every one of these guys' things that they do. They do amazing stuff. I'm not only just a guy that is a fanboy. You know, I started a podcast just to have guys on here that I like and get to talk to, but you guys will learn a ton from these guys. Go join community. If you're out there watching, you want to know how to be a better dad, who to connect with. These are men that you can reach out to. So everything all these guys do is going to be linked below. I just want to say that before we move on. Thanks again, brother. I appreciate it. All right, let's move up next to Heath, the main man, Heath. He's all about romance. Heath, can you give us a quick rundown here, my man, and let us know what you're all about?
Yeah, I've been married 23 years. I got 3 teenagers, and I consider myself the most romantic man that I know. When I first got married, 25 years old, I was going to make the money. I was going to do all the stuff, but I was going to make sure that my wife was drawn to me all the days of her life. So when I think about a husband and wife, I think about the lady. She's like a rose, and us guys, our job is to be the soil. When most people look at a rose, they don't think about, man, that must have been incredible soil. But it's the soil that makes that rose bloom, that makes that rose have incredible aroma. And so if you don't like what your wife is putting out, producing, giving out, you need to look at yourself. I also tell guys that they are the thermostat in their household. They are not the thermometer. So it is us guys' responsibility to inspire our wife to romance. And I'm just talk about sexuality. If you're not getting the response from your wife that you want when it comes to sexuality, you need to look at what you're doing. As you were kind of referenced earlier, Ty, romance begins in the kitchen, sex begins in the kitchen, and then it moves into the bedroom. And so again, if my wife is angry, overwhelmed with our children, we homeschool our kids, I need to look at my own life. Am I helping her out, right? Am I coming alongside of her? And so it's not the wife's responsibility to respond to me. I got to create the environment so that she wants to respond to me sexually. I do a very similar thing that Joel was referencing earlier. Also, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We speak two totally different languages. Women are feelers. Us guys are analytical. We like to go from point A to point B. And so we all know this. We got to stop fixing our wives. We got to be world-class listeners, Hall of Fame listeners. And when your wife is talking, she wants you to listen. You need to do the active listening. The more that you do that, the more she'll respond. Another aspect when it comes to romance, she wants to know, is she your priority? Is she worthy? Are you constantly pursuing her? I mean, my wife sometimes, right before we're getting ready to have sex, she asks me, why do you want to have sex with me? And I can think as far as point A to point B. I've been married 23 years. I'm doing this. I'm doing it. She wants to hear it again. I can't get defensive. I can't get irritated. She wants to hear it again. So I've trained my man brain to understand the woman brain, and I got to describe to her once again. I got to talk to her about what incredible wife, what wife she is, mom she is, how incredibly beautiful she is, the virtue coming outside of her. She just needs me to wash over her mind once again, because she's a feeler. Okay. Once you understand that she's a feeler and you're analytical, your structure, you won't have all these fights and disagreements. You realize you're totally different. Again, she speaks Spanish, you speak English, whatever analogy you want to use there, but you have to continue to communicate with her. And so my wife and I, again, I'm married 48 years old. We still have sexual intimacy 4 to 5 times a week. I'm constantly putting that idea in young guys. You don't have to let it dry up. Okay. You don't have to let it dry up. If you take her on dates, if you do a million little tiny things, she'll keep falling in love with you. You can still be boyfriend and girlfriend. And I just want to give a shout out to all the older guys in my life. I just asked the question, what's the latest thing you've done with your wife? The latest romantic thing. So I just steal all the best ideas and then I teach those.
That's awesome, man. I love that. That's so, Heath, you're the man, man. Some of your threads that you put out there are just unbelievable, man. So has there ever hit a point in your marriage where perhaps you had to pivot or you had to think, hey, maybe we're not in a spot that we should be, or how do you kind of get out of a rut, or how do you kind of train your brain then as a guy who kind of goes from this way to kind of see through a different lens and kind of get into her head more?
Oh, I mean, of course I failed. Of course I've done the wrong thing and put my focus on something else, business or so forth. But one of the best things I did is I had my wife write down the top 50 romantic things that I've ever done for her. Had her write those down. I laminated that sheet, put it in my sock drawer, and that's literally a cheat sheet for me. Okay. So I just pull that thing out. And when she talks about doing this, I just make sure I keep doing that. In the same way in my business, I have a business plan. I literally have a romantic plan. And it's based off the 5 love languages. And I've broken it down in little categories. And I just go ahead and do that. One of the recent things that I did is my wife and I like playing cards together. I know you play poker. We don't play poker, but we play cards together.
Go with some strip poker one night. That'll be a good one for you guys.
The ringer is here.
I need to do that sometime. But anyway, we played cards. She went to bed. After she went to bed, I just put on the table, I love you, just in the cards, right? So the I in cards, love and a little heart, you. She woke up that morning. She felt loved again. She felt romanced, because romance is about all the little stuff. It's not taking your wife to Aruba. You can do that. But just all the little things that shows that you're thinking of her. You care about her. She's number one in your life.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Even when you're at work, or do you try and make it a point to keep touch with her all day, to kind of send her little notes or love notes or things like that as well?
Oh yeah, another thing you can do before you get, my wife loves when I wear cologne. Before you guys go to work, just go and spray a little bit of your cologne in her van so that she's smelling you all day. When you're away from work, she's smelling you all day in her vehicle. Oh yeah, I text her throughout the day. She just loves it.
I love that, man. Heath, you got all the tricks, brother. We need to talk off stream here a little bit, man. I feel like this is we're gonna have an after hours powwow here with our man Heath going on after here. I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to add to this topic. Anybody else on here, man? That's pretty tough to beat.
Oh, I did want to ask who I heard John say this on the retreat, and I say it too, and I was like, oh, like this is, how many of you call your wife your bride?
I do.
Yeah.
Call her my queen.
Yeah, that too. But I heard John say that, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. I hear you, John. I hear you. I see you.
I like that. Well, thank you so much, Heath. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, brother. You're the man. Let's head up top to the wise young man here, John. John, you're a man that I admire, I love, I look up to a lot. I've learned from, man. Running family meetings every week now because of you. Can you kind of drop some of your wisdom for us? Kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and some of your history.
Yeah. Thanks, Tyler. And again, just like Anthony said, pleasure to be here and meet these guys. And I'm still giggling at Heath, and I'm taking notes here on some of my romantic stuff that I'm not doing well. But it's a pleasure to be here. And so I'm John Schaup. I have a Twitter account with my bride, Debbie, and it's called the Schaups. And we started it simply because of a conversation we had back probably in about 2011 that as parents of young boys, and we were feeling really good about what we were doing and the structures that we had put into our house. And we thought, we need to write a book. And of course we didn't. And so one of my boys said, hey, Dad, you need to get on Twitter. You and Mom need to get on Twitter. So I, strangely enough, I had just moved to Reno and was looking for a group of men that I could connect with, that I could, because I had lost my whole friend group when I moved. And I found Twitter to provide that space. And I had no idea about, dad Twitter and finance Twitter and all that. And we've just kind of fallen on that. And it's given me and Debbie a platform for, as you said, sharing the wisdom that we have with our 3 boys. And the one thing that we have linked on our Twitter account is our family meetings. It's probably one of the things as far as the simple structure for, as Anthony said, a lot of dads, it doesn't come with this is how you do it. And there's so much available to you now, but so I wanted to be able to give dads, young and old, something that they could put their hooks into. And so we've got this thing on family meetings that was such a blessing for us as our kids grew up. Every Sunday night, we had a structured family meeting, and from, going over highs and lows and compliments, and we had faith talks in there to giving out allowances and then calendaring that, what Joel talked about a little bit of taking stuff off of your wife, that happens so much in the calendaring. What's happening this week? Who's going where? Who needs to do what? Okay, I'll do that. And it just kept us all so organized. And my boys now are grown men. They're 30, 28, and 25. And they respond in that little chapter there a little bit too, that, they didn't love coming to family meetings, but they knew they were important. And when they become dads, they're going to implement some structure of that themselves. And it's been such a blessing to, from like watching my boys now in just like in finance, they're all investing. They all run off of a budget. They all operate in a, you know, they open the door for their wives or fiance, you know, in the car. That I see them treating with that respect because it was modeled in our house. And it was stuff that I knew, you know, I was blessed. Both my bride and I were blessed. We had awesome parents. Both our parents were married for over 50 years. Divorce wasn't part, it was never even mentioned, never thought of. It was, so we grew up in a very stable, solid structure that we've been able to continue. And I hear and I see on dad Twitter people talking about building that legacy. And I'm an example of that. You know, my dad still calls me every Thursday night. He did on that first family retreat. I mean, the dude's 83, and I look forward to that call every Thursday night. And we talk about from the weather to his health to the Seahawks to whatever, you know, just life in general. And like this COVID stuff, he actually thanked me last Thursday night on the call because I kind of talked him off a cliff a little bit on a couple of these things and given him, you know, a different perspective to think about. So we just feel blessed. And I love just, like I said, we're on Twitter sharing our wisdom. And some of it's about our relationships. And, you know, Heath, I absolutely agree with you on that pursuing and the romance. And I don't have the cheat card there. But, you know, I'm doing like some of you, you know, we're slapping her rear end and we're teasing. I'm doing the date night. And I'm absolutely, I think like Anthony said, more in love with my bride now. And we've been married 33 years than I was for sure on the day, because we've grown together. We are about oneness. And just for reference, just so you know, it wasn't some brilliant thing, Joel, that I did to call my bride my bride. It was really just Guy being logic. You know, when you get married, she's your bride, right? Mm-hmm. And at some point, she's supposed to become the wife. And I could never figure out when the bride stopped being the bride and became the wife. When is it 6 months? Is it a year? I had no idea. So it just stuck. And so she's my bride, and she finds it very endearing and loves being called that. And it's just one of our little romance language things that we do. So
that's awesome. And one huge takeaway I've always had from you too, John, is that you kind of, you know, you ran the family meeting every Sunday. Yep. You kind of had these built-in kind of wins and habits for your family. And then you kind of mentioned even now that, hey, I came from this kind of legacy and I wanted to create that. But I'm sure there's some guys maybe listening to this that they didn't come from a home right. that was modeled like that. They don't have any kind of thing that they learned from. Could you give them any kind of advice, or, you know, outside of joining community, or what would you tell a guy like that?
Yeah, well, it's to join a community, find a dad, find some men that you admire, that you're inspired by, that it could be in your church, it could be on Twitter. There's tons of amazing men out there, tons of us. And you just start listening. As Heath said, you got to listen and absorb and look at yourself, look in the mirror. Like the family meetings I'm doing, that my dad didn't do that. That was just, we found that on our own. But I would just, really encourage men that are struggling on how to be a dad and how to create structures is find people that you admire. And it, you know, Anthony's website, I love what they're doing, the Peaceful Fathers. I've been looking at that, and it's so solid, the message that's out there. And there's an awesome, I'll say, blueprint out there to how men should be in treating their wives and modeling for their kids. Find those guys, model after them, ask them questions, and change yourself, change your own image. You can do it. It's in us to be amazing men. You just got to believe that we can get there with help.
And you always start within. I think that's a common theme that everybody kind of talked about. And I will say, you know, if we could all maybe go around the table and talk about this one last point, because often, you know, a client or somebody that'll reach out in my DMs will say, you know, my wife hasn't been intimate with me in 3 years, and my kids are little terrors, and I don't like my boss, and this and that. And, you know, what would you guys tell to a guy who would kind of show up to you with that kind of attitude? If maybe we could just go around the room, and if there's one guy listening to this today, maybe they feel stuck. Maybe they feel like, I don't know where to go. I feel like my head's spinning all the time. I don't have a good relationship with my wife. I feel distant from my kids. I feel like I'm losing at everything, being pulled in a million different directions. Maybe we could just start with Anthony, go to Joel and Heath, and back to John. And what would you give advice to somebody like that, Anthony?
No, definitely. That's a good question. So if a father came to me and said his kids were out of control, not listening, misbehaving, just wild and crazy, first and foremost, I would tell him to stop focusing on the kids and start focusing on himself, right? That's where that's where everything begins. And, it's tough to do. It's tough to evaluate yourself and see exactly how you're parenting. And once that's a little bit more squared away, once, you can go through a little bit of a checklist and say to yourself, are you being calm in tough situations, right? Do you have mental fortitude when when things are falling apart? And that's important, right? How we behave is going to be the example we show our kids. So we have to make sure that we're setting that example all the time, right? Whenever we can. But, I would say that one of the most important things, our kids, that is one of the most important things, because our kids look up to us, right? Whether we want to admit it or not, we are the greatest person in our child's life. And we have to act like that, right? We have to act accordingly. So again, it starts with you. There's a million and one different things I can tell you what to do, right? Getting shoes on, brushing teeth, going to bed, curfews. There's ways that you can handle situations that are tough. And that's where the peaceful parenting thing comes in, where we negotiate, we compromise, and we communicate. So it's being a little bit more civilized, right, than our parents were, bringing a little bit more peace to the home.
That's awesome, brother. I really thank you for sharing that, man. That's awesome. How about you, Joel? If somebody came to you and said, you know what, Joel, we got a ton of kids, life's chaos, man. I'm not sure where to turn. What was a piece of advice or wisdom you could give them, my man?
I think it really starts with humility, right? There's things that you don't know that you need to know, or that you need to implement, and being willing to say, okay, like where, like I need some help in this. Because I think it's kind of going back to what you had asked John, or what you said to John. It's like, hey, you have like dads who are dads now that maybe didn't come from the best family. It's like there is no perfect dad. Like I had a great dad. Tyler, you had a great dad. Like the relationship that John has with his dad, like that's amazing. But even he said, it's like, hey, there's things that like we did for my family that my dad didn't do. And so it's realizing that hey, like that, having that spirit of humility and being able to say, oh, like he has great ideas over here, and I want to implement those things. And I think the things, like the people that you're attracted to, that they're trying to like bring something out of you. Like my dad was pretty mild manner, and I liked football coaches, like rough football coaches, like because it spoke to like my whatever spirit I had in me. My dad was not like that at all. But I picked up on those things. So it's just being able to be humble and understand that, hey, you love your dad, you love your parents for who they are and what they were able to give to you, but just having that humility of, hey, I'm going to go ahead and pick up these pieces from somebody else.
That's awesome, brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Well, Heath, I think you hit on pretty much everything, brother. I think you got us all taking notes, man. And I want to ask, I'd actually love it if any of you guys want to come on individually onto the podcast again. I'd love to get the opportunity to talk to any one of you men for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and share a lot more wisdom. I do want to wrap this up because I know it's 10:30 East Coast, man. We got Anthony's on his 7th coffee. He needs to get to bed. And I do, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you guys coming on, though. Any last words you guys want to say, or words of wisdom to anybody out there?
Yeah, Heath said he has 50 things laminated. I got to get to work, man. I could probably come up with 10. So that's something. He just raised the bar for me. I appreciate it.
Huge. He did for me too. I real quick, I did want to say, because I loved your question, Tyler. And I'm going to say sometimes what dads we're not clear on is what we expect and what we want in our house, and some of that's that self-reflection. And we have to be clear up here, and then we have to communicate it clearly. We sometimes just don't give our kids a message of what's good enough or what I need. And you do that calmingly, as Anthony's talking about, in a loving way, but you have to be clear in your mind, and then you have to follow through. I mean, it's sometimes that simple. Just be clear on what you expect and what you want, what you need, and model that, and then expect that of others and hold them to that. But often we just don't communicate that well enough with our kids. We don't tell them what we really want. What does the clean room really look like? I mean, we define that and walk them through that. So anyway, but It was a pleasure.
I think this is why community is so important. You know, Heath leveled us all up tonight. You know, but when you surround yourself with men, like-minded men that want to keep getting better and want to grow you, it's a powerful thing. I think, Heath, you challenged us all tonight, man. Give us the last word, Heath. Can you send us out, brother?
I'll share one. So I have a client right now. He hadn't talked to his wife in 6 or 7 months. They haven't had sex in a couple years. And so what I told him is every night you need to have couch time for 15 minutes. They literally they live in 2 different rooms. So 15 minutes, just talk about small talk. Then I said every Sunday afternoon, my wife and I, we have sandpaper time. What sandpaper time is, I literally sit in front of my wife and say, go ahead and give me some sandpaper. What do I need to improve on? When it comes to parenting, what I need to do differently, how am I doing with communicating with you? How am I doing with picking up my trash, whatever? Because we're partners here together. And I'm an A personality, so I need some people to help me here. But I encourage all guys to have sandpaper time. I agree with Joel. You walk in humility, you humble yourself, and let your wife smooth you over. It'll change your marriage.
That's awesome, brother. I appreciate it. Well, again, guys, thanks so much. This has been episode 21, Tyromper's No Limit podcast. Again, if you guys want to see these men on more, maybe drop some comments below. Thank these guys for coming on. I'm going to link everything that they do underneath. I hope you guys got a lot of wisdom out of what they shared like I did today. Thank you guys again, Joel, Anthony, Heath, and John. I really appreciate you guys' time for coming on today. Go ahead and go be kind to yourself today. Level yourself up as men. Join community. Let's have on fire homes. That's how we change the world, guys. Thanks again, guys. Have the best day.
You too. Thanks for having us on.